Good evening and welcome to a special Wednesday edition of the Insider Access Show presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship exclusively on the Better Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Balkman. Follow me on the X at Eric Balkman, EricBalkman. I am joined by the 14-time FFPC League Champion, Dave Terpoilli. You follow him on the X at Dave Terp. Dave, we are covering tonight the Hardway Big Gorilla Tournament. This is among the highest, most prestigious drafts that we will have in the Big Gorilla this year. And I think what's interesting about this is all these guys know, Dave, that this is not the way to earn the $1 million in the FFPC Big Gorilla. Yet these guys do it. What is the impetus behind that? Good evening and welcome. And why do these guys join this league, knowing that they probably won't win the $1 million? With this.
Easily bragging rights. I mean, these guys all have egos. I mean, anybody that says they don't is lying. I mean, they all want to win this league. I mean, we're talking about some of the biggest winners in FFPC history in this league. We're talking about multiple time league winners, playoff challenge winners, dynasty gurus. I mean, some of the best are in this league and drafting right now. So everybody that's in this league, they might not have a chance at the $1 million, but at the end of the day, they want the bragging rights that are attached to it to say that they won this league.
I think that's what it is. And I think that, I think Darren Armani has won this before. Theo Gremminger, I was listening to his Fantasy Points, Fantasy Football Daily podcast today. He has won this league the last 2 years. So he is going for a three-peat here as well. So there certainly is there's a lot to like about this draft that we're covering tonight on a special Wednesday edition of Insider Access. Now, I want to remind everybody as we get into the draft tonight, you can obviously compete against these guys for the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. $1 million grand prize, $350 entry fee. You're going to get a $50 discount for every third team you sign up for. Drafts are off and running both slow and live. The early Rampage tournament and the 7 Bananas promo are live. For more information on that, go to myffpc.com. The FFPC main event, the flagship event, is off and running as well. $1 million grand prize there as well. So 2 separate $1 million grand prizes again for the 4th straight year in the FFPC. A $6 million plus prize pool in the FFPC main event. Early bird deadline is May 31st. Receive $200 off your first FFPC main event entry team. If you register before then, slow drafts already running now. Live drafts will be going on at the end of the month as well. Dynasty startups going on, $100 to $5,000 for an entry fee there. 1,800 plus leagues over the last 15 years. None have ever folded. MyFFPC.com. And if you're a best ball bro, go and play the FFPC Best Ball and the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament. $300,000 and $100,000 grand prize, respectively. $100,000 grand prize for the runner-up in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. That is new this year. Drafts available with a 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks, myffpc.com. We are through the first round. I'll bring all the cohorts in tonight, and we might be joined by them tonight. You never know who's going to pop over on Insider Access tonight. With the first pick tonight, the Deep End Fantasy Football podcast, Mike Schopp from WGR 550 in Buffalo, a guy who is no stranger to high-stakes fantasy football. Starts the draft with Jamar Chase. Theo Gremminger from Fantasy Points, who I alluded to earlier. He goes with Bijan Robinson at the 102. The Sarsaparilla Gorilla, that is Dan Williamson at Overhyped Sleeper, one of the co-hosts of the Stack Hunters podcast on the Player Profiler Podcast Network. He goes with Brock Bowers at the 103. The tight end cherry is popped at the 103 tonight. Justin Jefferson is Austin Martin's pick. Austin Martin, a former $500,000 league winner for the FFPC, and God knows, Terp has won 14 leagues. Austin is right up there with him, maybe even more than Terp. Austin has won a lot. He takes Justin Jefferson at the 104. Noah Ruddell, the 9-time FFPC champ, takes the second running back off the board. It's not Saquon Barkley. It's Ashton Genty for him at the 105. Todd Burros from the Run Daily podcast, a podcast he has hosted for the last decade plus, I believe, goes with Saquon Barkley at the 106. CeeDee Lamb, the third wide receiver off the board, to Darren Armani from Fantasy Mojo. FantasyMojo.com is a fantastic website. If you're playing the FFPC, highly recommend you get a subscription to FantasyMojo.com for all the ADP, the stacks, everything going on there. Mojo is going to have it. Darren Armani goes with CeeDee Lamb there at the 107. Jahmyr Gibbs falls to the 108. That's Dom Baranyi, Nick Costantino, and Sean Stutzman, the former back-to-back FFPC main event champs. They take Gibbs, fourth running back, off the board at the 108 tonight. And then a bunch of receivers here. John Daniel, the host of the Draft Room Baller podcast on YouTube. He, formerly of the GOAT District, he takes Malik Neighbors at the 109. Abib Agbetoba, the former back-to-back Football Guys Players Championship champion, overall champion, he takes Brian Thomas at the 110. Amon-Ra St. Brown is John Daigle's pick at the 111. He established the run fame. And then you have Harambe. I don't know how to pronounce the gorilla's name here, but it's hilarious. Bradley Stalder, the co-host of Stack Hunters with Dan Williamson, who's drafting at the third spot tonight. He takes Trey McBride at the 112. Terp, a lot to unpack here. Let's kick it off with what Dan Williamson did at the 103 tonight, taking Brock Bowers. This is earlier, according to Mojo, than Bowers has been going, even in tight end premium drafts like the FFPC. But if you're looking for elite talent, if you're looking for a difference maker, Bowers might be the guy there over Jefferson, over Barkley, over Genty. What do you make of Dan Williamson taking Brock Bowers at the 103 tonight?
He's definitely the best of the position. I mean, obviously in the FFPC format, he is with the 1.5 point per reception. It's an elite option this early. I'm personally not taking him over Jefferson. I'm not taking him over Barkley. Probably CeeDee Lamb, even with the Pickens news that came out today.
Right.
Gibbs, I probably take him right after Brian Thomas for my rankings. I mean, I don't think it's a bad pick in any way. It's not like a reach or anything crazy. I just think that there's a lot. The tight end position this year is extremely deep. Mm-hmm. So is Bowers that much better than what you're going to be getting from Barkley and Gibbs and even Ashton Genty? Jefferson, I don't think so. I think you can find that a little later and not invest such high draft capital.
So we're looking at Bowers going at the 103. What do you make of Genty over Saquon Barkley? And I'll pivot to this here. A lot of people who are drafting, I know that, Stack Hunters and John Daniel and John Daigle and a lot of these guys here, Todd Burros is another guy, Theo Gremminger, they are in the industry, right? They're going to back up their picks with what they're saying as far as public advice. For the most part, these guys are trying to win $1 million. So I think like you take that portion out of it where people are trying to make a name for themselves. These guys already have a name. They don't need to, stand on business here. They're trying to win. What do you make of Genty over Barkley here for Noah Ruddell at the 105? I think it's interesting, and I know you're an Eagles guy. Was that a move that you would make?
2 Raiders in the top 5. When do we ever think we would ever say that in a fantasy football draft? I mean, Ashton Genty is definitely the popular, guy, especially landed in a good spot. Pete Carroll, new, Geno Smith. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't know how you take him over Barkley. I mean, he's still a rookie running back, and we've seen it over the years. The Bijan Robinsons, the guys like that. You're going to have some issues early on. Is the Raiders going to be able to, feature him as much as people think? I think he's definitely a first-round pick. I'm never taking him over Saquon Barkley. I mean, with that offensive line, let's just say he has 80% of what he did last year. And last year was just a remarkable season, Super Bowl, if you didn't see the thing behind me, Super Bowl champs. But let's just say the tush push gets slowed down a little bit, and Barkley gets more rushing touchdowns. It's in the range of possibilities. I don't think they're going to change that much. I don't think they're going to just start airing it out with Jalen Hurts. So Barkley, to me, is right there with Bijan Robinson in the case for the top running back off the board.
We are through the second round here. Bradley Stalder goes with Nico Collins to pair with Trey McBride. More on that in a little bit. Christian McCaffrey is the 5th running back off the board at the 202 tonight. He pairs with Amon-Ra St. Brown with the Draft Room Ballers team at the 111 spot tonight. Puka Nacua makes a lovely pair for Brian Thomas for Abib Agbetoba. Same thing with Drake London, who is going to go with Malik Neighbors for John Daniel here. John Daigle, takes McCaffrey with Amon-Ra St. Brown. John Daniel takes London with Neighbors. AJ Brown off the board to the Go Bills franchise with Jahmyr Gibbs at the 205, and then a bunch of running backs here. Devon Achane to Darren Armani. Then you're looking at Jonathan Taylor to Todd Burros, Derrick Henry to Noah Ruddell to pair with Ashton Jeanty, sort of like the opposite ends of the running back draft board as far as age goes, with Jeanty and Derrick Henry. Ladd McConkey is the 209 tonight as team number 4, Austin Martin, starts receiver with Jefferson and McConkey. Garrett Wilson goes to Dan Williamson at the 210. George Kittle at the 211 to Theo Gremminger. 212 is going to be Breece Hall tonight, as he is Mike Schopp's pick as his number 1 running back, the 9th running back off the board, as we complete round number 2 tonight in the Hardway Big Gorilla.
I want to know, where is Todd Burros?
Todd is in the 6th spot tonight.
I know that, but why is he on auto pick?
I think he might be lining these up. And just, we've seen this before with
fair,
where you are lining up your queue and you're not giving Darren Armani, you're not giving Noah Ruddell any extra time to think. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's what he's doing tonight. Now I want to bring up Trey McBride at the 112 tonight. We have consistently seen one tight end in the first round in a lot of FFPC post NFL drafts so far, Terp, with Brock Bowers firmly in there. What do you make of McBride sneaking his way at the end of the first round? If you had a pick at the end of the first round, maybe not the 112, maybe the 110, the 111, is Trey McBride sneaking into your possibilities there?
I mean, Trey McBride was really good last year. The issue was he didn't score touchdowns. I mean, we know what a disaster that was. Is that going to improve? You would think so. The regression, should turn into something really positive this year. I don't know if I'm taking him there. I mean, I'm not taking him over Puka. I'm not taking him over McCaffrey. I'm probably not taking him over A-Chain. London and A.J. Brown we can have a conversation about, just because the premium on the tight end position. But again, like I said, I think the tight end position just has a ton of options this year that are really good in the middle rounds, that makes you not invest such a heavy dose into this Bowers, McBride, type of start in the first round. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I love Trey McBride. I've been on Trey McBride since he was something. So I don't think it's a bad pick. I mean, this guy picking 12 might want to take a little bit of a chance, maybe pushing a guy up a little bit more because there's no chance he's going to come back. So I don't hate the pick. I just wouldn't make it myself.
I looked at this too. McBride right now, according to Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani, everything that he has is all directly related to FFPC drafts right now. FantasyMojo.com, at Fantasy Mojo on the X. If you have an FFPC team or several FFPC teams, highly recommend you get a subscription to FantasyMojo.com. Darren has him, Trey McBride, on average at the 111 in the Big Gorilla tournament. So it's not like he overdrafted him here, but I'm with you, Terp. It is kind of weird coming off a year where we had no tight ends going in the first round to now taking the second tight end off the board in the first round. You got to stick and move. I get it. And I don't think it's a bad pick. It's just weird to see Bradley Stalder take him there. Trey McBride, Nico Collins, a lot of targets for him. He's coming up on his third round.
People got burned by the position last year, and you see that every year with the Kelceys, the Kincaids. George Kittle wasn't great.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys that were picked high, they burned. Evan Ingram, and another one that people got steamed him up as we got closer to Vegas, where he was getting drafted in crazy spots, and they all kind of flopped, especially Kincaid, especially Kelce, especially Evan Ingram. So it's Sam Laporte is another one that was another guy that just didn't get it done, and was drafted in the first round of pretty much almost every draft as we got closer. Yeah. So it's a tricky position this year, but I think the depth is a lot better. Good rookie class, landed in some good spots. Yeah, it could take some time, but I mean, if you can get, some of these other guys who landed in good spots, like I just mentioned, Evan Ingram, which I think is just an absolute smash spot if he can stay healthy, which is obviously a big question with him. There's plenty of other guys there that I like that I wouldn't personally go that high on a tight end.
So the other thing I'll bring up here too, a former ESPN operative, Mac Nova, who is a longtime FFPC player and multi-time FFPC league champion, has pointed out here in the chat right now. Ashton Jeanty over Saquon Barkley in the first round. Yes, let's have some fun. We are having some fun with Noah Ruddell taking Jeanty over Barkley. He also said Kittle at the 211 in the Big Gorilla is the earliest he's seen. George Kittle on average going at the 308 in the FFPC Big Gorilla tournament. According to Darren Armani, the earliest he has gone is the 212. So yes, Mac Nova, you are right with Kittle going at the 211, and that's the earliest you've seen. He also said Breece Hall at the 212 is the earliest he has seen as well. Breece Hall, according again to the FFPC Fantasy Mojo, normally goes at the 305. He has gone at the 212 over the course of the last 7 days in the FFPC Big Gorilla. So you're looking at Mac Nova being correct here in Theo Gremminger reaching on George Kittle, reaching on Bucky Irving, Mike Schopp reaching on Breece Hall. But I think, Terp, that this is an important thing to remember here too, is these guys know who they're facing. This is not 11 FFPC Joes, right? These are accomplished players, both in the content space, in the high stakes space. And in a draft like this, these guys aren't just like planting their flag because this is what the advice they're giving, right? They're planting their flag based on like, I have to beat these guys to get the championship round. And you're going to see picks like George Kittle. You're going to see picks like Breece Hall. You're going to see picks like Bucky Irving here. It's all about trying to win everything and not necessarily, standing on what you have publicly said here, which is one of the great things about the hard way. This is everybody just trying to win and knowing this is as blood sport as it gets, trying to figure out
the chances of someone coming out of here and making a deep run in the Gorilla tournament is very, very slim. All these guys know that. I mean, it's you're just talking about some just veteran drafters who know what they're doing. You're not seeing value fall in these drafts. You don't have like one or two guys in there that are kind of messing things up and pushing value to other guys that help out in these drafts. So you're just trying to win this league and maybe find a way to get in the money somehow. Mm-hmm. That would be, I think, best case scenario. I can't say I know all these years that this league's been going on. Have any of these guys made any deep runs? I would say no, but it's just a tough league.
Yeah, I think that the reason they do this, you brought it up at the top of the show, Terp. It's bragging rights, but it's also sharpening them up for when the real bullets start flying here. They've already been starting flying. Anytime you have the NFL draft and then it's over, you're going to see like there's a lot of people that are going to be drafting their teams knowing that very little is going to change from that at that point until the start of the season. And we're already seeing this now, and these guys know what's going on. We're almost through the third round. I'll take you through it here. Mike Schopp adds Devontae Adams to Jamar Chase and Breece Hall for his team at the 301. Bucky Irving, I just already said. Theo Gremminger takes Irving to go with Bijan Robinson and George Kittle. So Theo will wait until at least the 411 to take his first receiver in this competition. The Sarsaparilla Gorilla, Dan Williamson, goes with Terry McLaurin to go with Garrett Wilson and Brock Bowers. A lot of pass catchers there on his squad at the 303. T. Higgins, one of only two teams to start with three straight receivers tonight. That's Austin Martin. He goes Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey, and now T. Higgins at the 304. Noah Ruddell goes with the receiver here in the third round at the 305. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 16th receiver off the board to go with Ashton Genty and Derrick Henry in his backfield. Todd Burros goes with Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and now Green Bay's finest, Josh Jacobs, as his number 3 running back tonight, loading up on a very robust RB team here from the 6th spot. Tyreek Hill to Fantasy Mojo's Darren Armani, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, and Devon Achane there. So he goes Dolphin in the last couple of rounds. Chase Brown is going to be the second Brown drafted by Dom Baranyi, Nick Costantino, and Sean Stutzman, the Go Bills franchise. They go Gibbs, A.J. Brown, and now Chase Brown. John Daniel, Neighbors, London, and Xavier Worthy, an explosive, youthful pass-catching core that he's got there from the 9-hole. Kyron Williams is the first running back drafted by Abib Agbetoba to go with his real-life teammate, Puka Nacua, and then Brian Thomas in the first round. Omarion Hampton, the second rookie running back off the board tonight, to John Daigle to go with Christian McCaffrey and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Rashee Rice, the 312 pick for Harambe 2.0. That's Bradley Stalder, the co-host of Stack Hunters on the Player Profiler Network. He gets Rice, Collins, and McBride, a lot of targets there. No quarterbacks through the first 3 rounds. Terp, I want to focus this next question about tight ends with you here. We've only seen 3 tight ends and they've all been off the board prior to the second round. What do you make of only 3 tight ends off the board as we are now at the 4.04 and only 3 tight ends here drafted?
To me, if you're not getting Bowers or McBride, it's just a waiting game. I mean, you're just going to, stack, some of these middle round guys that are just in pretty good spots. Are they as sexy as Bowers and McBride? No, they're not. But there's just so much talent that's on this board right now. I mean, you look at the third round. I mean, you're talking about Higgins, JSN, Jacobs, Chase Brown, Xavier Worthy, who's extremely popular this year, rookie in Amari and Hampton, Rice. If Rice doesn't get suspended, if Rice is 100%, I mean, Rice is a first-round pick in most drafts, or should be. After we all saw the year he was having last year, he would have broke, fantasy football if he would have not got hurt. It was that he was having that kind of start to the season. He was free in drafts almost. So it's just there's so much talent right now, and you're going to start seeing the quarterbacks as you're seeing right now go off the board in the fourth round. The elite guys, I think you're going to see a couple outside of, Burros should be coming up here soon with the Higgins and Chase teams, and also Jalen Hurts. And then there's a little bit of a drop off at the position, but there's just so much talent on the board. And I think tight end position this year is just one you can sit back, wait a little bit, and build your team, at the other positions.
Where do you stand, Terp, on, and I was having this conversation with one of my local radio honks who plays Dynasty Fantasy Football, because I had this decision that was facing me in actually a redraft league today in the KFFSC. Where do you stand on T. Higgins versus Jackson Smith-Njigba? This is a question that Austin Martin, the former 500K champ, had to answer here. He had to decide between Higgins and Smith-Njigba, and quite frankly, Tyreek Hill. He goes with Higgins over Smith-Njigba. Higgins, the number 2 pass catcher on Cincinnati, over Smith-Njigba, who is the number 1 pass catcher in Seattle. Where do you stand on that conversation? Because this is something that a lot of high-stakes players are going to have to make their minds up on. Higgins versus Smith-Njigba. Did Austin Martin make the right choice here at the 304? He
did. I mean, there's really no way you could line them both up. Just look at, when we're trying to get in these tournaments and we're trying to win $1 million. I say this every time I get on these shows. I mean, obviously you got to win your league and get there. But T. Higgins with Joe Burrow, I mean, he has Jamar Chase on the other side. The offense is just going to be peppering. They're going to be throwing that ball a ton. The defense is still very suspect, especially if Henderson doesn't come back. In a division, it's extremely tough. In a league, it's extremely tough with Josh Allen, Mahomes, and all that crew. So to me, Higgins is the pick. I don't hate JSN. I'm not in any way, but I don't like Sam Darnold. I don't think he's good. I think they overpaid him. I think they just kind of got to a spot where I'd rather have Geno Smith personally. They just got to a point where they just needed to, get somebody in there. And he came off a good year, but you saw at the end of the season what Sam Darnold really is. Is that going to be any good? And is that going to make JSN, get to his value? I don't know. I just think there's other guys that were drafted after him that I would pick personally. Jacobs, Tyreek Hill, Chase Brown, who I think is a guy that nobody's talking about right now. He's always been my guy, but he was one of the biggest draft winners out of everybody. They got nobody. He's still the guy. I'm not worried about Zach Moss. I'm not worried about Samaje P. Ryan. Yeah, they're going to be annoying at times, but if Chase Brown's 100%, Chase Brown's going to be on that field, as you saw at the end of the season, and he was just carving up fantasy teams, left and right, with as much as they throw him the ball, and just, he was a goal line back most of the time too. So there's just so much to like about Chase Brown this year. And there's guys I like over JSN.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'm with you on the Chase Brown thing, because I think he did a great job. Not that he had anything to do with it, but he did a great job avoiding rookies that would threaten his workload in 2025. And the defense is still the Cincinnati defense. I don't think they made any wide sweeps.
They still got to play Lamar. I mean,
yeah. And there's going to be some shootouts there with Burrow and Chase and Higgins and Brown.
Mason Rudolph, they got to play twice a year.
Well, I don't know if that's shootout potential, but it could be.
That was all sarcasm.
Sarcasm. Yeah, no, I get it.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers, if he decides to get off his couch.
I think that's going to happen. I think
it's going to happen too, but I kind of hope it doesn't, because I'm hearing rumors after the Pickens trade, they're talking about Lazard. Let's not go through this again.
We're going to go through this right now. The last thing I want to mention, and I'll take you through the fourth round here shortly. Last thing I want to mention about the third round, Terp. we had 2 Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers go off the board. Xavier Worthy to the draft room baller himself, John Daniel at the 309. And then Bradley Stalder waits until the 312 to pair Nico Collins with Rashee Rice. 3 picks apart are these Chiefs wide receivers. Do you have a feeling on which Chiefs receiver should go first in the FFPC Big Gorilla? Should it be Worthy over Rice or vice versa?
I think it should be Worthy. I said at the end of the season last year, wherever Xavier Worthy's being drafted, it's going to be too low. I just think that you saw at the end of the season, you saw in the Super Bowl, you saw them figure out a way to get him the ball. He's lightning speed, and he's starting to learn and get a rapport with Mahomes. With Kelsey kind of being on his way out the door, I don't really think you're going to see anything special from him this year. It's going to be the Worthy and Rice show. Obviously, Hollywood Brown's still there, who I still think's a solid player, but Andy Reid at the end of the season, I really paid attention to how much they tried to get him the ball. Was it always spectacular? No, but you saw in the Super Bowl, I know it was a game, there was a blowout and all that stuff, but you saw the big time ability he could possibly present. And Xavier Worthy's a guy that if you're trying to win a shootout, he's a guy I would love to have on my roster because he's a guy that can put up, 40 points in seconds and literally light the slate on fire.
What do you make of the addition of Rashee Rice? If he, I shouldn't say if he gets suspended, he's going to get suspended. But when you think about, yes, I do think he will. You're not convinced that he'll get suspended?
I'm not convinced. No, I
really?
don't. I think it's going to get pushed back even more. I'm on the camp that I don't think he's going to be suspended.
Okay, all right. And why is that? Like, do you have any inkling of why you think that is, or
why hasn't he been suspended yet?
Because I think this is a whole legal process thing, right?
Yeah,
they're gonna wait and they're gonna wait and they're gonna wait, and then once we get to the start of the season, then we'll find out that he's been suspended for 2 games.
They set the court date or they set the decision. I forget when they set it for though. I saw it the other day.
I'd have to look it up as well. But I am of the opinion that I think he does get suspended. You are of the opinion that he does not get suspended in this, which is fine. Like, I don't think there's, at least as far as May 7th, 2025 goes, Terp, I don't know if there's a right answer here.
There's no hot takes yet. They're coming, but not yet.
They will come, for sure. They always do.
They will come.
4th round has come and gone. Lamar Jackson to Bradley Stalder at the 401. Josh Allen right after him to John Daigle as his number 1 quarterback. Kenneth Walker pairing with Kyron Williams in the backfield for Abib Agbetoba. Jaden Daniels running things under center for John Daniels' team, the draft room baller at the 404. Marvin Harrison falls to the 405 to the Go Bills franchise. RJ Harvey, another rookie running back, is gone, and he goes to Darren Armani at the 406, 16th running back off the board. DJ Moore, the Chicago Bears wide receiver, at the 407, followed by Mike Evans at the 408 to Noah Ruddell. Sam Laporta finally gets drafted. Shouldn't say finally. His ADP normally is 411, so he goes at the 409 tonight to Austin Martin. And then Tet McMillan is the 3rd consecutive wide receiver drafted by Dane Williamson. James Cook, the 3rd running back selected by Theo Gremminger, and Travis Hunter wraps things up at the 412 as the 3rd wide receiver drafted by Mike Schopp. So a lot to unpack here in this round. Let's kick things off with the Marvin Harrison selection by Dom Baranyi, Nick Costantino, and Sean Stutzman here, the former back-to-back FFPC main event champs here, Terp. They end up going with Marvin Harrison to pair with A.J. Brown. Marvin Harrison, I was drafting in the KFFSC last year. This guy was a borderline first-round pick. At the end of that second turn, we saw him going a ton. He falls all the way to the mid-4th. That's not unlike where his ADP is at right now. What do you make of the Harrison pick here in the mid-4th round to go Bills?
One of my highest known players last year, definitely fell flat. Was it his fault? Partially. Was it Kyler Murray's fault? I think more. It just never clicked. There was never any time when you really even the games he had big, it was kind of a little bit of fluky stuff. Kyler Murray missed him a ton. We've seen the tape. It's not pretty, but you're getting a guy in the 4th round who's going to be the lead dog there. And you would think they'd figure it out in the offseason. They'd figure out a way to get to – he's extremely talented. We saw it at Ohio State. We saw some flashes last year. to me, he's one of the best values in drafts right now. I love what the Go Bills guys have done so far. They're probably my favorite team. Just well balanced, Harrison, Brown, Gibbs, and then in the 5th round got Mixon. It's really hard not to like what they've done so far, all things considered.
I always like, and I've drafted a bunch this year early in the season, Terp. I always like being balanced in these early drafts, much more so than I love, loading up at one at one position and then kind of figuring out the rest of it.
Especially in this format, if it's best ball, it's different,
right? Yes,
but you have to actually click the button, which is my famous line that I use every year. It makes things a little bit more tricky when you're starting 4 receivers and a quarterback because you got to click that, David Montgomery possibly button or, guys like that where you're just like, not really. I'm not excited about it. Like, you're going to really click Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders, or you really like Tyrone Tracy, guys like that where, some of them you love and some of them you don't matter. But it's just like an ugly click, especially starting the season. So like I said, like you said perfectly, I like to be a little bit more balanced, especially early. I feel like you can get a little bit more creative later. But early, I feel like there's just so many guys that are being drafted here that makes so much sense that it's the best way to do it.
I just feel like in a league like this where you're going up against so many guys, Agbetoba, who has won the Football Guys Players Championship back-to-back years. The Go Bills.
It's crazy. Guys. It's still crazy to say that there's 2 guys in this draft that have won the both
main event and the mid
back to back, which is just crazy to even think about.
I never would have thought.
We're not talking about guys who are like 100 entry guys,
right?
That have like literally 1 million teams. We're not. These guys they have a good amount of teams, but we're not talking about every team in every league type of situation. These are just extremely talented guys, and if you see them in your draft room, might want to opt out because it's going to be a long day for you.
Well, and I'll say this too, in a format like this where you have so much talent, right? Where the margins are like this, like you have
Very
to
small.
win at them. That's why I like to go balanced. You talked about what Go Bills have done here, and they're on the clock here in the 6th round, but they've gone running back, they've gone wide receiver, they've gone running back, they've gone wide receiver, running back, and now they take a quarterback here. I just feel like the best way to win this type of league and then advance to the championship round where you're going up for $1 million is be flexible and have the opportunity to hit the value at running back if it happens. Hit the
you don't
value.
Want guys that are falling down draft boards and you really can't take them.
That's the thing. Exactly. Because if you load up at one position, let's say you load up on what's a good example here? E2A Mart, Austin Martin at the 4th spot. Now he is loading up at pass catchers right now. If there happens to be a value at wide receiver here in the 7th round or 8th round, he can't really take advantage of it because he needs running back so bad.
He can, but it's just not.
No, but I mean, if you do that, that's now you're getting into the overkill aspect of
Correct.
it, and you're putting yourself into a corner, which it still could work out. Listen, Austin Martin has forgotten more about fantasy football than I'll ever know, so
Amen.
I'll put it on that to him as he takes a quarterback here in the 6th round. But I'm just going to say, like for me, and maybe this is me showing how green I am when it comes to competing against these guys. I want to be balanced as much as I can to be able to strike at the value, whether it's running back, receiver, tight end, quarterback. I want to be able to do that. And some of these guys are so dialed in, they know what they want to do. They know how they have to gain an edge, and I'm not going to fault them for that. But I get what
we talk about Austin Martin's team because now you just took Joe Burrow. So
it
makes a lot more sense. Now it's like I love to start. He was my favorite team through 3 rounds. Love Jefferson, McConkey, Higgins. Laporta makes a ton of sense. I'm really high on Hockenson this year. I think he's a guy that's being way underdrafted. And then pairing Burrow with Higgins makes so much sense. The thing he has going for him is he can literally just fire green coming up here. And yeah, it could be tricky week, first couple of weeks, but there's plenty of guys that are still on this board that make a lot of sense. And after taking Burrow, you're pretty much done at the position. I mean, you're not taking it back up. If you do, maybe, very, very late, you're buying into the Burrow Higgins stack, obviously with the Bengals, but he has plenty of guys that he can be taking here that, they might not be the sexiest pick, but if all those other guys hit and the Laportas and Hawkinsons return to the elite form that they had, this to me is a top 3 team right now. I mean, obviously I probably would have mixed in a running back maybe ahead of Laporta.
Well, okay.
Instead of Hawkinson, but taking Burrow makes this team a lot better than taking a Tony Pollard.
Well,
I like Tony Pollard. I'm not hating on Tony Pollard, but you eliminated 2 positions. There's 2 positions off the board pretty much you're done with. You're done with tight end. You're done with quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 3 stud receivers that you started with. So you can just – it makes a ton of sense. If he would have took Tony Pollard here, I'd have been like, yeah, I get it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. But to try to win a tournament, this is the way to do it if you're going to go this route.
I'm going to say this about Austin Martin's team. And, like, let's face it, the way that he has structured this team, we're probably going to be talking about it for the majority of the show. But when you look at what he's done, I like so you got the Burrow to Higgins connection, right? And in the 4 weeks that Higgins plays this year, it's going to be great. I'm just kidding. Higgins is going to play more than 4 weeks.
T. Higgins won a lot of people a lot of money
at the end of the last season, for sure. Yes. Now Laporta and for anybody who is tuning into this and you're not familiar with the format, tight end premium, and you only have to start 2 running backs and 2 receivers, plus you get 2 flexes. So Austin Martin obviously can start Laporta and Hockenson each and every week if he wants to, and it's not at a detriment to his wide receiver position. What do you make of Austin Martin avoiding the running back position here in the 6th round, Terp, knowing that when it came to him, 24 running backs were off the board? So that means he's looking at RB3s here from here on out.
They're kind of all the same right now. So it's like you take the elite quarterback, you take the best guy clearly that's on the board with Higgins. It just makes too much sense. I mean, like I said, I keep going with the Tony Pollard, and he's even digging in even more and taking Andrews. Which, if Andrews stays,
this is wild. This is wild.
It's a team trying to win $1 million. I mean, this guy's one of the best. And I know people say I like to favorite him when he's in drafts that I do, but the way he structures teams is just second to none. I mean, taking Pollard or Connor over Joe Burrow, like, that's not doing you any good. That's not winning you $1 million. At the end of the day, if this is a team that, based off 7 rounds, I know the running back position, everybody's going to say that thinks, oh, he doesn't have a running back through 7 rounds. They suck. But if he figures out that the running back position with the next, 4 or 5 picks, what happens then? This team could, based off the structure, be in contention for $1 million.
Austin Martin,
it's different, or it could be last. Is there a difference? For him, there's probably not.
I don't think it's going to be last. I mean, he's going to have to get
how many teams are going to have the 3 stud receivers with Burrow and then 3 elite possible tight ends and didn't have to reach for any of the ones to be at the top?
Well, okay. So what's wild about this, Terp, is that Mark Andrews, the 704 pick for Austin Martin here in the 7th round, that was the 8th tight end off the board. 7 of those 8 tight ends were on the left side of the board. So look at, and Matt Deutsch, our producer tonight, shout out to him. Everything that you are seeing on this board tonight, as far as tight ends, it's all on the first 4 picks on the left side. Team 5, Team 6, Team 7, Team 8, everybody, until you get to Bradley Stalder's team at the 12 spot. They only have 0. They have 0 tight ends. Bradley Stalder has 1. And obviously, Todd Burrows added a tight end here in David Njoku. I will be very interested to see maybe what happens in the 7th round here with tight ends for the people on the right side of the board, but what happens in the 8th round, because what Austin Martin did by taking Mark Andrews here in the 7th, he has put the onus on the other guys on the right side of the board.
They better get tight ends quick.
They better get their tight ends. And as a result, he's probably going to get some running back value falling to him.
Yeah.
In the 8th
and
round.
Taking Burrow, the same thing. He's going to take, I know that the right side has the quarterbacks, but all these other guys on the left side, they're going to have to start clicking that button soon. The Caleb Williams of the world, guys like that, they're going to be getting drafted here pretty soon as QB1 options.
Yeah.
It's a risky proposition, but
you got to take risks in this, but you have to take risks,
especially this league. I mean, any league you're in, you got to take risks. If you're just going to sit there and draft based off ADP, you're going to lose. Every year you see, like, let me click the button of the guy next. That doesn't win. No. You want to win these tournaments, you're drafting against a ton of teams. And a structure like this makes so much sense. Again, could the running back position blow up? But that's why you have free agency. This is something that there's always running backs that pop up on free agency. And if he can get one really good one and then mix and match that RB2 position with the guys he's drafted so far, it's pretty hard not to like a team that through 5 rounds, they were like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the Burrow and Andrews pick it makes so much sense, especially because you look at the running backs that are being drafted. They're all the same. Tony Pollard, I like more than the rest of these guys, but James Conner, he's getting up there. DeAndre Swift, yeah, they didn't really add anybody in the draft, but like DeAndre Swift, what's he ever done that really excited anybody? Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason's there now. I mean, and there's going to be guys that are going to be coming off the board here soon that just all look the same. So if you can get a bunch of these guys and one of them emerges, two of them emerges, you could be looking at a really, really good team going forward.
So since we have seen the Mark Andrews pick, the third tight end drafted by Austin Martin here, we've seen 3 tight ends go in the 7th round. David Njoku to Todd Burros, Evan Engram to John Daniel, and then Colston Loveland to Abib Agbetoba. Colston Loveland is going to be the tight end 11 in the 7-10 tonight. And we'll see again. We'll see what happens when it comes back, because all these teams will have another chance to draft a tight end prior to Austin Martin. Okay, I want to get to God. Who had this in the chat earlier? I got to scroll up to see it. There was a Travis Hunter question here, and I'm trying to find it, and I can't find it. But somebody wanted to know, Terp, what we think about Travis Hunter this year. Travis Hunter has moved up tonight to Mike Schopp as his third wide receiver at the 412. We found out that he is probably going to be there you go, Sean Green, former FFPC Pros versus Joe's competitor, a longtime FFPC player, wants to know. Sean Green wants to know, Travis Hunter at the 412. What do we think about him this year? I have seen him skyrocket up the boards after Jacksonville traded up for him and said they want to primarily use him as a wide receiver, but he still is the Robin to Brian Thomas's Batman in Jacksonville. Terp, I think he's being a little bit overdrafted right now. Am I wrong in that stance?
You're not wrong at all. I don't see the 4th round value on him. I love the player. Obviously, to me, he was the best player in the draft. The landing spot is good. If anything, this makes Trevor Lawrence an elite option, where he's being drafted. I mean, if there's ever going to be a time for Trevor Lawrence, it's got to be this year. Mm-hmm. It makes a ton of sense for him. New coach, shiny new toys. But he's still going to play defense too. And I know he wants to play both ways. And I know he's come out and said, if you don't play both ways, he's not going to play. But can he play both ways? Is it withstandable? Is he big enough? I mean, he is an extreme talent. We've seen it. I mean, he was everybody's top player in this draft. And his landing spot was good, but I feel like it wasn't the best. And taking him in the 4th round is just a little bit rich for me. I mean, I think he's going to have a really good rookie season, but is he going to pay off that value? I don't know. I think I would look elsewhere that early. I mean, where he was going in some of these early drafts, yeah, I think it's worth the risk. But Brian Thomas is a dog, man. Brian Thomas, to me, could be the wide receiver 1 this year. And I'm saying that over Jamar Chase. I think that's not the craziest take I'll ever have. I mean, I just really, really think in Liam Cohen's offense, he's just going to be really, really, really good. And they've already said the offense is going to run through him. So, yeah, I know Travis Hunter's a shiny new toy, but I feel like he's going to play both sides, and that might limit his big upside that people might think he has.
Let's bring up a guy who's on the clock right now, which is the perfect time that anybody wants to be on the air.
Nice hat. Very nice.
Fly Eagles Fly. He is the proprietor and the owner of FantasyMojo.com at FantasyMojo on the X. He's on the clock right now. He is Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes Championship. Darren, we'll get into your interview in a second. You are on the clock here at the 8:06. Who's the pick going to be?
Let's see. I'm taking my guys here.
3 running backs, 4 receivers, nary a quarterback or tight end to be found until now. It is the pride of the University of Wisconsin, the Badger, Jake Ferguson, the now new 3rd option in the Dallas Cowboys passing offense this year after the acquisition of George Pickens. I'll let you wax poetic on that right now. We have not talked about the Pickens trade a whole lot on the show. You take Ferguson at the 8:06 tonight. According to your own data on FantasyMojo.com, we were looking at Jake Ferguson at the 10:06. You draft him at the 8:06 tonight. Obviously, the clientele that you're drafting against obviously had something to do with that. Why Jake Ferguson right here?
Yeah, well, it looks like I'm diving into the Cowboys. As much as Terp
Every time you come on one of these shows, you just take Cowboys. I don't understand.
I know. There's a bunch of Cowboy haters in these drafts, but
don't put. I know you're probably thinking about taking Dak. Don't do it, man.
There's a rhyme to the reason here.
I know there's always a rhyme.
But
Ferguson and Pickens. And I didn't even realize this. Lamb. There.
Yeah.
Darren.
I'm sitting in the middle. I'm trying to do my best here.
I didn't.
You got to remember. You got to remember, in a hardway draft, there's three things coming in. These guys love to take wide receivers. We've done this over and over again. So everybody, there's kind of a pattern. They love wide receivers. They push back the quarterbacks, and they love the rookies. So if you feel like you are interested in any of those angles, you can't wait around. When Schopp took Devontae Adams at 301, I mean, I thought I was going to get him at coming around the fourth. So it's just don't sit and wait around and with these guys. The well's going to be dry by round 12. There's going to be a bunch of players out there who may be high according to ADP, but guys you're not going to feel great about being on your roster. So this is the ultimate get your guy draft.
Darren, longtime viewer of this program, Mile High Luke, Botanical Extraction, wants to know, Jake Ferguson is dead when George Pickens comes to town. You have drafted not only Ferguson, you have drafted Pickens, and I'll say this as well, you've drafted CeeDee Lamb. Loading up on the Cowboys here. What do you make of Ferguson and, quite frankly, Pickens' role now that they're both on the same team in Dallas?
I don't think Ferguson is dead at all. I mean, Dak loves throwing to his tight end, regardless of what when they had Brandon Cooks, when they had better number two options, Dak loves throwing to his tight end. So I'm not really worried about that. Pickens, I think you're going to, so his ADP is around 8. I think tomorrow you'll see it start to go up, obviously, because I think he gained a couple rounds of value. So I'm kind of playing, not to say, I got a little bit of a stack, but you can't really say that until you have a quarterback.
Right.
But I don't think Ferguson's dead at all.
Because Prescott has the precedence of throwing to the tight end. That's why.
He loves throwing to his tight end. And when Ferguson went down last year, he was throwing a Shoemaker. He loves throwing to his tight end. So
they also have me and Mojo running the football this year, so they should air it out.
They don't have a lot of. They got Miles Sanders,
Devontae Williams, and Miles Sanders. That is, I like Jaden Blue. I do.
Why do you guys hate Phil Maffa? Why do you guys hate Miles Sanders? I don't get it.
Phil Maffa mania. All these rookie drafts running around, people taking Phil Maffa. This is all good. Like when the rookie drafts come, their values spike because of the recency bias of everybody's got rookie fever. But then if you look at the charts as the year goes on, they kind of drift down. Like people kind of lose that excitement for the rookies. So I think the Phil Maffas of the world are going to come back down to earth.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I get that, Darren. But looking at the rest of your squad here, you went back-to-back Dolphins in the second and third round with Achane and Tyreek Hill. And obviously there's a non-zero chance that Tyreek Hill is a Dolphin this season. I think as we get closer to the start of the season and he's still on the Dolphins, makes me think that he probably will be a member of Miami going forward. Your thoughts on going Achane and Hill, two players that obviously fulfill different roles for the Dolphins. And maybe if it's an Achane week, it's not going to be a Hill week and vice versa. You don't seem like the guy that is struck by, hey, I can't, if I'm drafting the lead running back on a team, I can't draft the lead wide receiver. You have no problem with doubling up with both of those guys there.
No, I mean, they're guys with big ceilings week to week for points. So, again, in this league, you got to shoot for upside. And Tyreek and Achane, they both fit that bill for me. So it's just in this league, stocking your roster with as many explosive weapons as you can, and then hope at the end of the year. This is only one piece of the puzzle, the draft, right? So beating these guys in waivers. Free
agency just sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm already exhausted thinking about waivers.
Darren, you said on X before this show, you said this was your most exhaustive redraft league that you participate in as far as waivers go.
Yeah, absolutely. Make another pick here.
All right, who's it going to be? We got you're on the clock here. You have 4 receivers. You have 3 running backs. You added a tight end in the last round. You're going to go another double. You're double tapping tight end. And I gotta be honest with you. This is a player.
Great day for Muth.
When I saw the trade happen this morning, I thought, God, Freiermuth is a player I'm going to want to talk about with Terp when he goes off the board tonight. And Darren, we're lucky enough to have you on the air when Freiermuth gets picked by you. Is he the new second pass catching option that you need to get in Pittsburgh? Even if it is Mason Rudolph, even if it is Will Howard, I think Muth has been underappreciated over the last couple of years in Pittsburgh. And now with George Pickens out of town, this could be Muth's year.
Yeah, with Pickens gone, Muth he's the guy who's going to benefit. So I picked him earlier today in another draft as well. So he's another guy who you're going to see rise up the boards a little bit. And I'm a Penn State guy too, so I always like Muth, but Muth is definitely going to be a beneficiary of all those empty targets now sitting in Pittsburgh. So I like that pick. Now, all these guys were eating up the tight ends early. Tight ends really kind of deep this year, in my opinion. So I like the Muth.
I agree totally. I think it's probably the position with the most depth.
Okay, there's still big names on the board. So
there's still a lot of talent. You know, guys just got drafted. Tucker Kraft, the rookies, Loveland and Warren. You know, Freiermuth, Ferguson. You know, all these guys. Mark Andrews. You know, people think he's dead. I mean, obviously Isaiah Likely's still there, and he's going to be annoying. But if Andrews is still in Baltimore as the season starts, or it looks like he's going to be, that's probably one of the best offenses in football. He's still going to get his work.
Yeah, he's going to get. People are off him because of the drop pass in the playoffs, but
of course
he can be fine.
But guys, if tight end is deep this year, shouldn't we be waiting on tight end? If you don't get one of those elite guys like McBride and Bowers early,
most of these guys waited though.
I guess Darren, that's what you did. You waited till the top 12 tight ends were off the board, and you got tight end 13 and tight end 15 here.
If you don't go Bowers or McBride, then there's no urgency. Like a lot, the next tier is so large. I think you can hold off, and that's what I've done here. But in this league, I got to stack up on receivers and running backs before I hit those tight ends. So that's what we did here. Like I said, you've been in this league enough years, you kind of know how it goes. It's too many smart drafters in this league.
Darren, how many years have you been in the hard way for this mid-stakes contest?
What is it? Since the first year.
It's been going on for a while.
It's like 7 years.
Right.
It's been going on for a long time.
And the impetus, and Terp said this is a bragging rights league. But I would counter that with saying, I think this is the league that you guys want to get in to sharpen yourselves up for tourist season and for the meat of drafting season. I feel like that's why you guys want to get in on this. This
draft has like a main event feel to it. This is a Vegas Live main event feel to this draft because you can't relax. Everybody in this draft is sharp. Now, when I do fantasy or big gorilla drafts like that last weekend before the season starts, that's definitely tourist season. And not only are the drafts softer, the waivers are so much easier in those leagues. I mean, it's amazing. Like this,
there's guys who don't even put a waiver in all year. It's crazy.
It's there's a learning curve to the waiver system, and you got a lot of newbies in those later drafts. So I always like to grab a few of those as well. So we'll see.
Always.
But this one is just a nail biter the whole year. But you got to do it because, like you said, it is bragging rights.
Yeah.
Although the one year I did win this, I think that team I took within the top 400 overall.
Wow, that is now. Didn't you?
We were talking about that before you came on.
Oh yeah, Darren, didn't you win this league last year? I thought you won this league last year.
2 year. No, who won it? Go Bills won it last year.
Oh, they did. Okay,
and Theo won it the year before, and then I won it the year before that.
The Go Bills guys, the last thing they need is a win.
No.
In
they
this
can take a year off.
My God, just insane stuff. Even Sean Stutzman, so they won it back-to-back years, and then Sean and another fantasy football operator, he won a big contest over there too as well.
Yeah.
So somebody needs to get a proctologist over in Buffalo to remove that horseshoe that is deeply implanted into all three of those guys.
They're living a blessed life. God
They
bless
really
them.
are. They really are. So Darren, I want to ask you here too. We're coming up on the halfway point of this draft. You are on deck right now. To your point, and now you're on the clock. To your point, you have waited on quarterback. You did not take one in the first 9 rounds, and quite frankly, there's only been 8 quarterbacks taken. You knew this was going to happen. It's happened again. Is a quarterback in the cards for you here, or are you loading up on maybe another running back, maybe another wide receiver? What are you doing here at the 10:06?
Yeah, I think I'm going to wait on quarterback still. There's a lot. There's only 2 teams past me need a quarterback, so there should be something coming back.
Are you worried about it at all? Let's just say Dak.
No, he's not worried about it. If he was worried about it, he'd take one here too.
Nah,
I think it's risky.
I'm eyeing up running backs and receivers. So let me.
Terp, here's the thing. While Darren decides on this, if he takes a non-quarterback here, which it sounds like he's going to do, he could go with quarterback in the 11 and 12 and be okay. Don't you think?
But my contradiction to that is based off the team he's structuring. You're not really trying to go quarterback. You're betting on the Cowboys to be an elite offense to take this team to the ceiling that you can get.
Okay.
If you don't take Dak and somebody else takes him, yeah, you can still draft a lot of great talent at the position, but without Dak, I mean, if Pickens, Lamb, Ferguson all get there, without Dak, you're kind of, I live by the stack.
You live by the stack, you die by the Dak.
I just feel like you're betting so much on that offense that why not get the guy who's.
But here's the thing, Terp, and you feel free to come back at me on this. You look at that dude's who we're just talking about, his ADP, it's in the late 14th round, and that's in a normal big gorilla draft. This is a draft where people wait on these quarterbacks and they wait and they wait and they wait. You're talking about 11th and 12th round. If Darren wanted to come back with that, I think it's like
he's likely going to get him no matter what.
Right. That's my point.
It's probably going to work out for him, all things considered, because nobody else. I don't think
unless somebody wants to fight me. If somebody wants to fight me,
I don't think Theo's going to do it. Doesn't make sense based off the structure he has. With 2 49ers, probably not. Dan in the 3 slot, probably not. So, I mean, then you're just looking at one other guy who doesn't have a quarterback. I don't think any of these guys are taking backup before you get yours.
I don't feel like I have to have them, though.
It's worth the risk.
Yeah, so we'll see.
But it still is risky.
If you look at your squad here, I think there are opportunities, and granted, not great ones, but you could still get stacks even if you don't get the one that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I see the other one you're talking about.
I still think it's Darren, it's on you. Like, if you don't want him, then you don't have to have him. But I'm just saying, like, you're going to have a couple of chances, maybe even 3 or 4 chances to get him here, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Darren, we've been focusing on your team this whole time. Look at the board as a whole. You have been drafting in this for the better part of a decade. Is there anything that stands out to you tonight as far as rookies, quarterbacks, tight ends, or anything that I don't want to say caught you off guard, but you raised an eyebrow at when you were looking at the draft board as you've been picking your team tonight?
Go Bills seems like they've been getting some value falling to them. So, I mean, the Mixon pick was kind of late. Hurts was kind of late. I think they're kind of capitalizing on that. So that's one thing. And Austin Martin, I guess he's teaming with Hubbard. From what I've seen, they do zero RB a lot. They like to hit those running backs late, and that's what they're doing. But they're successful players. So everybody kind of leans on what's worked for them in the past. So I think Theo. I don't know. Theo went with the 3 RBs in the first 4 spots. Right. I don't think he probably intended to do that, but he's just taking the value because, all the wide receivers were kind of gobbled up before they got to him.
Well, what do you make about that Kittle pick? Because that's and Mac Nova, Mackenzie Kramer in the YouTube chat pounded on this early. That's the earliest he's seen Kittle go. What do you make of Theo taking Kittle at the 211? Because certainly that was something that caught us off guard as well.
Well, if that's one of his guys, he's not coming back to him in the fourth. Kittle, like, to use the cliche, I think he's better in best ball. He's got huge ceilings, but his huge spike weeks. But sometimes he'll mix into single digits quite often, depending on what the 49ers do in a given game. That was probably his guy. But then these other ones, he's just the value is sitting there, so he's taking it. I mean,
right.
You can only let that sit there so long.
All right, so here's what I want to do. We are through the first half of the Hardway Big Gorilla tournament tonight. These 12 players who are the most among the most accomplished in high stakes fantasy football, drafting against each other for $1 million tonight. I want to step out and take a quick break. When we come back, Darren Armani will join us for at least one more pick, as he is coming up in at the 11:07. We're at the 11:04 right now. We'll find out what he does there. Will it be another tight end? Will it be a running back? Will it be the quarterback? We'll find out here. Dave Terpoilli from the FFPC, Darren Armani from Fantasy Mojo joining me on the Insider Access FFPC show on the Better Sports Network. I'm Eric Balkman. Don't go anywhere. We got the last half of this draft coming up right after this.
What's up, everybody? Andrew Cooper here of Fantasy Alarm, and I'm here to talk to you guys about how to take advantage of your takes now that the NFL draft is over. I got them. You got them. We've all been thinking about ways to go with this rookie class, maybe even ways to get away from the rookie class, to go with the older veterans, to take advantage. Dynasty startup leagues at ffpc.com. My FFPC, that's the place to play. That's where you can go in and you can load up on the rookies from this class. If you love Ashton Genty, if you love Marion Hampton, if you're fired up about Pat Bryant, whoever it is, you can go in and get all these guys now and have them for their entire careers. Now is the time to get in and do it. Or if you don't like these rookies, if you think it was stupid that the Bears took Colston Loveland, if you think Emeka Egbuka is going to be buried behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for years and years, flip it. Go in and draft veterans. Go in and draft guys now while everybody else is going for picks and players and prospects. Load up. Put your name on the trophy and the money in your pocket right now. And the best place to do it, where I do it, where all the experts do it, FFPC, myffpc.com. And when you use promo code ALARM, they'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. So get in there now and do a dynasty startup draft. Draft your team. Show everyone that you would have dominated the real NFL draft, that you're the real best GM, and win some money over at myffpc.com now.
Eric and Dave Terpoilli covering the Hardway draft for the Big Gorilla tonight here on the Insider Access show of the FFPC, being joined by Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com. Darren, who's your pick here at the 11:07? It's going to be a quarterback.
Yeah, I'll take Bo Nix. I think I've waited long enough for my first QB. I didn't really see anything great at receiver. I've got enough depth there. Running back is, there's a bunch. There's a bag of rocks to pick from there. So I might as well just take my first quarterback here, and then I can pair him with. He kind of like pairs with Harvey, right? So, but Nix definitely has some. He's another guy who can give you high spike week potential. So I kind of like that.
Darren, how much motivation do you have to take another quarterback early? Now you have the 9th quarterback off the board in Bo Nix. Do you feel like in round 12, round 13, round 14, I probably want to snake another quarterback? Or do you feel like with this group who waits on quarterbacks, do you feel like you can wait on your second quarterback now?
Well, they do wait, but that doesn't mean they're going to wait for their second. They kind of push it off, but I think we'll start to see some of them go over the next 3 rounds. Especially now looking at teams 2 and 3, they don't have a quarterback, so they're really pushing it, which is fine because there's still good options out there. But we'll see. You can't really tell, but I think the second quarterbacks are going to start coming off soon as well. Just because you got to say, well, I can take kind of a mediocre option at running back or receiver, or I can take like a really solid option at quarterback right now. You can't push it off forever. So it's just,
right.
It's what's the lesser of all evils here.
Darren, a couple more questions here on your squad. You took Michael Pittman at the 10:06 as wide receiver 51. 4 picks before that, Josh Downs went off the board as wide receiver 50. If Josh Downs was still available and you would have had your pick between Downs and Pittman, who would it have been there?
I think I was still going Pittman, only because that's Farrell's favorite player, right? He loves.
Right. I was hoping you wouldn't invoke Farrell Elliott's name in the conversation, but it's happened now, so I get it. But you would still have taken Pittman.
I think so. I think he's a value. He's a buy low kind of guy, and as my 5th receiver, he's worth the risk there.
Okay.
So he's going to get zillions of targets, kind of like Farrell says. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and give him a shot to be on my squad. I mean, right now you're kind of throwing darts at this point in the draft. The cream of the crop is gone. So now it's, tell yourself a story time, right? So.
Don't you feel like this is really where the most challenging part of this draft happens after the 10th round?
Yeah, and keep in mind, you're going to have 2 waiver runs before the season.
Right.
So many of these guys. Another strategy to drafting this early is do as many dart throws as you want and hope like one of them sticks, knowing you're going to purge 4 or 5 guys in that first waiver run. Right. So that's another strategy that is kind of different than what later in the season.
Right. So then Darren, like at this, like when you get into the last 25% of this draft, you are literally swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
Because if these guys don't hit by the time training camp starts, they're easy cuts. So you can pick up on the guys who have been hitting.
Right. And that just makes that first waiver run all the more crazy. I think one year I looked at it to see like of all the 350 leagues out there, I was like, man, we make a lot of moves. And I think we were like in the top 10 of all the Fantasy Pros leagues across the whole tournament. That first week, we were like in the top 10 of transactions. So it's going to be hot and heavy.
You're almost on deck. I want to ask you about the DeAndre Swift pick, running back 27 at the 707. Nick Chubb is a free agent. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent. We know that Ben Johnson was the OC in Detroit when the Lions decided to move on from DeAndre Swift. When you think about all those factors going into what you did at the 707 tonight, how confident are you in that DeAndre Swift is going to be a good selection at that spot?
I mean, it's 7th round. I mean, and we can only draft with the information that we have now, right? So, I mean, he's looking good. For the 7th round, I'm willing to take the risk. They didn't draft anybody, so he came out of the draft okay. So let's see. All right, got a pick here.
Darren Armani's on the clock right now. While he thinks about this, I will bring you up to date on his squad. He has Bo Nix as his quarterback. His running backs are Achane, Harvey, and DeAndre Swift. At receiver, he has CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Devonta Smith, George Pickens, and Michael Pittman. He went tight end in the 8th and 9th round back-to-back in Ferguson and Pat Freiermuth. What am I telling you is that Darren Armani has no weaknesses here. He can go wherever he wants. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback. I don't know about tight end, but hey, it's a tight end premium league. Maybe he goes tight end here. Darren, you have about 20 seconds left on the clock. Take us through the thought process here for your 1206 pick.
I need a running back before it gets totally dried up. I'll take Ramondre here.
Ooh.
What a fall from grace, that guy.
Yeah.
So he's not dead, but he's still got decent value.
Seems like it.
So
fall from grace.
So here's the thing. I'm Darren, I'm in a KFFSC draft right now, main event, slow draft, and I ended up taking Trevion Henderson as my 3rd running back here. And I feel pretty confident that he is going to be the starter when the season begins here in September. I feel pretty confident that he is going to be leading the running backs in targets and receptions and carries. I feel like he is going to usurp Ramondre Stevenson. You take him, Stevenson, here in the 12th round. We cannot forget about the impact that Stevenson has had on this offense and know what type of player he is. Why was Stevenson? Think about all these running backs that went after Stevenson here. All these rookies and second-year guys: Sampson, Lloyd, Bigsby, Neal. You took Stevenson there. Why was Stevenson the pick?
It's my RB4, so I still need a relatively stable option before I start really throwing darts. Now these other guys have, that's a fifth. I just need another depth piece there before I start throwing complete darts. In my estimation. So
he joins Achan, Harvey, Swift in your backfield here. And you're still getting a top 48 running back here in the 12th round. So kudos to you, sir.
I mean, by ADP standards, that was two rounds past his ADP. I mean, it's not an exciting pick, but it was a construction pick for me.
Darren, for anybody who is watching this and is unfamiliar with fantasymojo.com at fantasymojo on the X, I always, in all my shows I do, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, Insider Access, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, I always cite your ADP. Anytime I cite ADP on the show, it's always due to your website. Tell the viewers more about fantasymojo.com who may not be familiar with it.
So if you play in the FFPC format, it's essentially a must-have companion to playing in the FFPC. Primarily, it's famous for ADP and draft boards, but we go deep, like in the Dynasty. We have roster cut-down information. We do waiver wire metrics and historical data going back years and years. But here's an interesting thing that I found. So I go into the Chat GPT and I just, for the hell of it, I type in, where is the best ADP for FFPC? And honest to God, it comes back. And not only does it list me as number one, it says I'm the gold standard of ADP.
That's when you know you made it in life.
It came up with that. I was like, all right. I don't know who said that, but anyway, it's kind of the one-stop shop for everything, especially right now with rookie drafts. You're not going to find ADP anywhere. I've got guys from other websites like subscribing to the site because you can't get accurate ADP.
Yeah.
But if anybody had, go to there's a virtual tour on the homepage. You can go there, check it out, and enjoy.
So that's the thing is, so point that out. And Darren's always very humble about this. He's like, drafting season, that's when you want it. Nah, you're going to want it all the time. You're going to get the stacks in the Big Gorilla, the FFPC main event, the FFPC
Stack Finder,
the Stack Finder, obviously on there. And then during the season, you're going to get all the waiver wire runs. You're going to find out how much people were bidding on certain players. You're going to find out this is real life bidding, which I think is underrated.
It's really important if you're a new player because it kind of tells you like what the market is, like what is a player value. You can go back to last year, especially week by week. What are the dollar values for like the top two running backs available, and you can go back and see like what they historically go for, and it's very similar year to year, like what the price ranges are for players. So it's really an invaluable resource. Go Bills guys have brought this up, like that's something that they really like seeing is going back and look at historical data. So
they won again. They won back-to-back FFPC main event championships. So that like this is where the champions are going for their data. You need to go there right now. You have gone with a backup running back in Cincinnati here in Taj Brooks.
Now we're throwing darts.
Total dart throw.
Is he a dart throw? Because I feel like everybody talks about Chase Brown surviving the NFL draft, but did he? Because, and Sigmund Bloom brought this up on a recent Footballguys podcast, and he said, all it takes is Chase Brown tweaking his ankle 1 week.
Yep.
And then Taj Brooks stepping in for 100+ total yards. And Cincinnati realized we had one running back. We got two running backs now in Taj Brooks. I think this is a very strong dart throw for you in round 13, knowing that the only other guy in Cincinnati who is worth anything is Zach Moss. And he's coming off a fairly significant neck injury too. I like the pick here, Darren.
Yeah, so I'm happy with that. So now we're in and get your guy dart throw territory, and we'll see how the rest of the draft goes.
What do you feel like you have to? I mean, obviously you got to draft a kicker and a defense. You probably want to get another quarterback here. Do you feel like you're good at every other position at this point?
Yeah, I think the core of the team is in place. Now it's just going to be
value. And dart throw.
This is dart throw now. So I'll have to get another quarterback, and kicker, I'm not an early kicker or defense guy because you just churn those picks over the course of the year anyway. So
yeah, I'm with you on that for
Yeah.
sure. We will continue to follow you on the X at Fantasy Mojo. FantasyMojo.com is where to go to register and sign up. Again, if you are watching this, you're an FFPC player, FantasyMojo.com is a necessity for your dominance in fantasy football in the FFPC in 2025. Darren, enjoy the rest of the draft. Thank you once again for putting together the Pros versus Joes Challenge. I know you've been rolling out a lot of the players, a lot of the pros that are going to be participating this year, and we'll look forward to the rest of those, and we'll look forward to having you on at least one of those broadcasts coming up in about 2 months or so when Farrell Elliott and I broadcast those Pros versus Joes drafts. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight, man.
Good talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
That is Darren Armani, ladies and gentlemen, the guy who is the founder of the Pros versus Joes. And, the thing is here, when we talk about how to win in the FFPC, FantasyMojo.com is your first step. Very affordable and very worthwhile. I do believe, according to our producer, Matt Deutsch, we have Fantasy Points own Theo Gremminger backstage. I want to bring him on right now. The guy who is the voice of so many podcasts over at Fantasy Points, including Fantasy Football Daily, including Dynasty Life. You follow him on the X at the OG Fantasy. Theo Gremminger, welcome into the broadcast tonight. Thanks so much for hopping aboard. How do you like your team so far here tonight from the 2 spot?
Every time I draft these hardway teams, you sort of roll with the punches, and I like my team. I always seem to need a little help at wide receiver in this format, but it's worked out well for me. I've won this twice, and last year I had a wonderful regular season, and then I lost in the championship to the Go Bills guys. So I've had a nice run in this. It's going to take a little bit of work. I like DK Metcalf a little bit more than most. I'm high on Jamison Williams this year. The Jawan Jennings pick was tilting, but I like it. He had a really, really strong role last year with San Francisco. Golden as well. So I've been trying to play catch up at wide receiver, but I was really happy to get Bucky Irving where I got him. I think that could be a hammer for me. I know Terp. I know your eyes lit up when you saw that Bucky Irving pick. That was the hammer right there.
That's my guy.
And I was sort of pot committed to George Kittle. The one problem with picking at the 1 or the 2 right now is I won't have any access to Brock Bowers unless I take him 1 or 2. So somebody took him 3, and then Trey McBride I'll have no access to. So I like Kittle a lot this year. I know I'd have to get him structurally. I sort of forced that pick, but I'm fine with it. It allowed me to sort of be naked at tight end. The James Cook pick sort of fell into my lap, and I made sure to cuff that one with Ray Davis. It wasn't my intention to have a 4th running back, but I think that'll be a really strong flex for me with that Bills starting running back in the 4th flex spot. Brian Robinson pick was another one where Dan Williamson texted me, said I sniped him. So I guess that was a good pick. Dan sniped me a few times tonight too. So I don't hate the team. And then Baker Mayfield, I get a little correlation with Bucky Irving. I've sort of liked correlating these quarterbacks with pass catching running backs. I think it's something a lot of people didn't do. Last year I had a couple of strong Josh Allen, James Cook teams, not necessarily a pass catcher, but that correlation worked out well for me. So I leaned into the Baker and Kyler picks. I keep expecting a quarterback run to happen. Those 2 picks might have been forced, but I get quarterback out of the way. Quarterback 4 last year and quarterback 10 with these 2 guys. So it's not a bad place to be with Baker and Kyler.
Yeah, no, I love the Mayfield and Murray picks here in 12 and 13 for your squad, Theo, for sure. I think you played the board correctly and it paid off for sure. However, there are some other questions I want to ask you about your team. I just listened to you and Brett Whitefield on the Fantasy Point, on one of the Fantasy Points podcasts this morning, the emergency podcast that you put out once the George Pickens trade was announced from Pittsburgh unto Dallas. You end up taking DK Metcalf here at the 502. Would you have made that same selection had Pickens not been traded today?
No, probably not. But I'm going to push DK up. I actually made a big trade for him in an FFPC Dynasty League as well. I think everything's sort of lining up for DK to have a very high target share season. I think he's really underrated right now. Pittsburgh, their whole offense to me is going to be run the ball and play action over the top to DK. I think also no matter who the quarterback is, with the amount of money that they paid him. I think they'll feature him inside the red zone. He's only 27 years old. And I think it's one of these players where we've sort of gotten frustrated with and sort of in this like rut with. And for me, I think that he's interesting. I'm OTC here, guys. I need to throw a pick in.
Yeah,
so
so Theo, you think about this. All right, now I'm going to bring the listeners and the viewers up to speed on Theo's team right now. He did not take a quarterback until round 12, but he has now gone back-to-back quarterbacks in Mayfield and Murray here. Good job there. Only one tight end on the squad, however, was George Kittle as the third tight end off the board in the second round. Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, James Cook, Brian Robinson, who I really love. We'll talk about that in a second. Ray Davis as his fifth running back. DK Metcalf, Jamison Williams, Juwan Jennings, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed. And now Theo, joining your tight end core is one Juwan Johnson in New Orleans as the 28th tight end off the board to back up George Kittle. You get good value here. There's not a lot of threat to Juwan Johnson in New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a guy that Kellen Moore really actively recruited to get him to re-sign. And I like some of these like really bottom of the barrel tight ends this year. I might even double tap it right here. But there's a couple of tight ends that I think are always interesting in this sort of range in these hardway drafts. It's sort of like beating the waiver wire. I know Mojo mentioned that. I might even double tap tight end right here, fellas. I'm looking at this right here.
Theo's on the clock. This is the 1502 pick. He's got Kittle and Juwan Johnson, thinking about drafting the 30th tight end off the board. Once again, FFPC Big Gorilla Hardway draft tonight. It is a tight end premium format, so obviously 1.5 point per catch for tight ends here. He's already got Kittle. He's already got Juwan Johnson. The thing is with Theo's team here, he's got a lot of flexibility. He could go wide receiver. He could go running back. He could go tight end. Quite frankly, he could go quarterback. Theo, you ended up going running back here, and this is a pick that I have made in one of my KFFSC drafts recently after seeing what the Bears did in their draft, the NFL draft, in not taking a day one or day two pick at running back. You get Roschon Johnson here. I think this is a very interesting pick.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Poles talked him up this week as a guy that they want to see if they can get a little bit more out of. The whole idea that DeAndre Swift is going to be some, massive producer for them, it just seems like it's a bad narrative. We've seen this sort of back pushed up in ADP because of situations. I'd rather take a chance on 15th round Roschon Johnson, sometimes even later. And even in a couple of these FFPC dynasty leagues, I've been taking him in like the 5th round of these rookie drafts where people just cut him. But the guy had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. He's athletically gifted. Again, this is one I could be cutting after the second week of the year. But if Chicago doesn't add another running back, I think there's a chance that the Roschon Johnson fall in the end zone role, the like homeless man's David Montgomery in this Ben Johnson offense could be a more valuable player to roster than like DeAndre Swift getting you 10 points per game in like whatever role he has. So it's just it's a dice roll pick. But I like it. I like the value of getting access to the Bears offense in what I think will be a much improved game pass. So it's
DeAndre Swift is just not a guy that I could ever see myself drafting on a consistent basis. We've seen it. What makes me think it's going to be any different? I could see them adding a J.K. Dobbins or somebody else just to muddy that up even more. Roschon Johnson's worth the pick that you're getting him at. I mean, if it doesn't work out, you cut him. That's the type of format where you can do that. There's no risk attached to him. Yeah. But if things do work out, I mean, you're sitting on a gold mine potentially in the 15th round.
Yeah. Again, Terp, I'll take 5 starts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're not looking for anything crazy, but DeAndre Swift, you're going to get from him. Even with Ben Johnson, even with that offense, like people were saying, well, they didn't add anybody in the draft, but there's still some guys out there that could, muck that situation up a little bit. Dobbins, Nick Chubb. Guys like that, they're not the sexiest names out there, but Dobbins showed last year he still got some juice left. I know he got hurt, and he's still out there, and he still has potential to land somewhere and really, really mess up some of these spots that make a ton of sense right now.
Theo, I want to talk to you so much more, but I know your time is precious. We got a couple more guests to get to. In your talk about this draft in your future podcast, I'd love to hear what you think about your Jamison Williams pick. I'd love to hear what you think about your Matthew Golden and your Brian Robinson pick, and I'll leave you with that. We will continue. Go ahead.
Little sneak preview is John Daigle's from Establish the Run, who's also in this draft, is going to be joining me on Fantasy Football Daily. That pod should drop Friday or Monday. So we'll do an FFPC hard way. Really ramping up the FFPC content over at Fantasy Points. We're going to be reviewing ADP. We're going to be trying to get you to help you crush your FFPC leagues. I actively play FFPC. I'm a player first, and I love the FFPC. So make sure you're tuned in to Fantasy Points. We're going to have you covered for all your FFPC stuff.
Yeah, Theo Gremminger can be found on the OG Fantasy on the X. Of course, check out all of his work over at fantasypoints.com, the Fantasy Points family of podcasts, including but not limited to Fantasy Football Daily, Dynasty Life, and the Fantasy Points podcast. Thank you so much, Theo.
And School of Scott
with Scott Barrett.
Yeah,
yes, obviously. Yeah, that's another big one. I never miss it for sure. Keep up the great work, man. We appreciate you joining us.
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks
for having me.
Theo Gremminger from Fantasy Points hopping aboard tonight. Let's get into our next guest. Matt Deutsch is just rolling them out here. This guy did something, and Terp, you and I said this when it happened. It was the unthinkable. When Abib Agbetoba went back-to-back in the Footballguys Players Championship, 2 consecutive years, we never thought we'd seen it happen. We saw it happen, and this guy has been crushing it ever since. Abib Agbetoba joining us tonight. He is drafting from the 10 spot. Abib, good evening. Welcome. How do you like your draft right now as we are 16 rounds in?
I love it. I mean, I drafted these players, so I gotta like it.
So you love it. You absolutely love it. This was, and it's weird too, because when you think about this draft, and you've been drafting in this with these guys for the last decade, whatever it was. But you, at the 10 spot, you can't really have a plan going in, right? You can have a shell of okay, I kind of want these guys. I think I'm going to be able to get these players here, but you can't know, right? And so you kind of got to let the draft board play to you, which I think you've done to some critical acclaim in winning 6 figures in the FFPC before.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, even in the 1 spot or the early spots, it's still tough because you don't know what's going to come back around the 2-3 turn. But like I said, I think I like how the draft turned out. For me, the biggest decision was to go tight end, trade McBride there, pass him up. I said, let me see if I can, hope hope that maybe trade falls to me in the second round. Obviously it didn't, but, was happy to get Puka there. I think the addition of Adams has sort of kind of pushed down his ADP, but I think we're still probably looking at a similar target share that he's seen over the last few years. So, early in the draft, at the back end, I feel like there's, quite a large tier. And I feel like right at that Puka, you may add 1 or 2 other players in there, that tier break, and it kind of drops a bit for me anyway.
So, Abib, I want to ask you, too. You decided to pass up Theo McBride. Trey McBride, you decided to pass him up there for Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas, who is the new teammate of one Travis Hunter, who went at the 4-12 tonight. We know what he did last year, but with as an exciting prospect opposite him at wide receiver and Travis Hunter, you still decided to go with Thomas there. Tell us why.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, I think, sometimes, yes, we get worried about the pie growing smaller. But I think, we're looking at a completely different Jags team, obviously, with the new head coach, new OC coming over from Tampa Bay. And all I needed to hear was what we heard at the very beginning of the offseason when he took that job, was that Brian Thomas was going to live in the slot, or we're going to play quite a bit in the slot. And we've just seen wherever he's been, at least in the NFL anyway, that slot role has absolutely dominated. And I love that they have a credible threat on the opposite side. I think that's what you want. Even sort of kind of bringing the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb into this. I actually like the addition of Pickens. I think that forces the defense to sort of kind of dedicate resources to the other guys, opposed to sort of kind of homing in on Brian Thomas. And again, Cohen, Liam Cohen was one of those guys who's going to move around his best players. Nobody's getting 100% of the target share. We just need enough. Obviously, it's we need some a step forward or improvement with the Trevor Lawrence and at the quarterback play there. But I think it's a position, honestly, he's probably one of the guys I'm always looking for and want to be overweight in this year heading into 2025.
The other thing I want to ask you here, or one of the other things I want to ask you, the Kyren Williams selection at the 310. I think a lot of people were predicting the death of Kyren Williams with the Blake Corum decision for the Rams in the draft last year. And then this year, everybody's all about Jarquez Hunter, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like with all that heat on Kyren Williams, you're like, you know what? In this type of format, I'm going up against 11 big-time great white sharks. Let's go with Kyren Williams here at the 310. Was that your thought process? Like, this could be a guy that really makes a difference for me in this format.
No, I really didn't want to draft him. But I mean, but like to your point,
Great answer.
To your point, I mean, at some point, you can't just pass on a guy because he's not sexy or he doesn't have the allure or because, there's a rookie coming in with tape. I mean, I think, one thing like for me is like, I don't have a short-term memory. So I can recall back like the last 5 years during the offseason about all the rookies that we get excited about, and I can feel that excitement. And then I every year we always latch on to these rookies. And yes, some of them are going to hit. Some of them are going to really be potential league winners or game changers for us. But I just always remember that hype. And that hype is never with one or two guys. It's not like we're very selective or very accurate in who should be, getting our attention and who we should be latching on to. So for me, like you said, I think the demise of Kyren has been a bit overblown. And again, kind of getting back to the idea of adding in, a high valued asset could potentially, really help out the entire offense. And so to me, again, bringing in Devontae Adams and having Puka Nacua there, I feel like it's going to be, open things up a little bit more from at least potentially anyway, and potentially more, scoring drives. One thing that I would like to see more, and this is why I've sort of kind of been off of him, and I was, a bit off of him last year, is, I want to see a little bit more in the passing game. When one guy's injured, and maybe when Cup or Puka were injured, we saw a lot of involvement. But obviously with Puka and Adams there, it's been a little bit more difficult. So if we can get, just a few more, catches and a few more receptions, I think, 310, for me, that's just kind of a hold steady pick. So you play him every week, hold steady, and then I can, look for upside later on in the draft.
Which you did. I mean, we'll see what happens with Travis Etienne. I love the Jordan James pick here in the 14th round for you. The former Oregon Duck turned San Francisco 49er. Abib, let me ask you this. I don't know if there's a lot of people that will be taking the top two tight ends in a redraft scenario that happened in the NFL draft. You get Loveland and Warren here in the 7th round and the 8th round as your first two tight ends off the board. And you triple it up with another rookie tight end, as I'm just noticing now, Elijah Arroyo here in the 13th round. All these rookie tight ends, Abib, what is the thought process behind that?
Yeah, so I'm a huge Loveland guy. It's probably one of my highest owned tight ends. And we're gonna quadruple up on.
Oh my God! Here we go. On the clock right now, the 4th rookie tight end drafted by Abib Agbetoba. Loveland, Warren, Arroyo. It's not enough. Terrence Ferguson.
It's not enough.
Now joining Team Agbetoba here at the 17-10. I love it. Talk about these rookie tight ends, man. My head is exploding.
Yeah. I mean, just for me, I love analytics. I love sort of kind of marrying that with the film. But probably if I got to choose one, I'm choosing film. And for me, when I watch Colston Loveland, he just looks different. He moves different. It's fluid. To me, I see a guy who, if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm thinking to myself, how can I utilize him in a pass game? What can we do to scheme him open? And I'm doing so in a way where I'm thinking about the fact that, he can do quite a bit after the catch, And so with Warren, this is actually my first share of Warren throughout the draft process, thus far. Sorry,
You're on the clock right now. I'm assuming this is going to be a 5th.
Playing at Michigan definitely didn't help him. I mean,
exactly. Playing in Michigan, a couple of the injuries.
Value down. I mean, with the quarterback play this year, I mean, people didn't even know he was even on the team because the quarterback play was so bad. Obviously with McCarthy, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who would have been a clear-cut tight end number 1 in this class if they had anything at quarterback this year.
Absolutely.
That's probably the only reason he fell down, because the tape just really wasn't there this year because the quarterback play was so awful.
Absolutely. And
I'm a Penn State guy, and that's a lot saying for me because Tyler Warren's a good player, but he's not on the category of Loveland, to me at least.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to these two guys, I think their ADPs are going to be depressed not obviously because of their draft capital, but because of the perceived, competition when it comes to targets. But the thing with Chicago is we've already there's already this fear with DJ Moore that tape was watched and they didn't like what they saw on tape. It's been all over Twitter and whatnot, and so we don't know where these targets are going. We don't know how they're planning on setting up this offense. We don't know if this is sort of kind of a year one building process and they want to get these young guys, their guys, involved in the offense and get them the ball, or if they're going to utilize some of these vets. So this truly is I don't know pick, but I will trust the talent. And, playing fantasy football, I think in this era, to me is almost like playing daily. So when I'm drafting teams, before I would just sort of kind of try to draft the core team and then maybe get a bunch of handcuffs and then sort of kind of play it out. And I would draft as if I'm like, this is going to be my team for the entire year.
Right.
Now I feel like just because there are just so many more options, especially in the passing game and so many running back by committees, injuries happen. I just want to get these guys on my team, Brandon Ayuk, I don't anticipate, playing for maybe the first half of the year. But I can envision a scenario where it's like week 10, and maybe they, even one of their current pass targets, or receivers are injured, and Brandon Ayuk is, a year plus removed from the ACL, is healthy now and is contributing to the team. Same thing with a lot of these rookie tight ends. Hopefully one comes out of the gate strong, but some of these guys are probably going to take time. And so definitely I think now when I draft, I'm drafting with an idea that, okay, week-to-week proposition, got to be patient with some of these guys. But at some point, all of these guys can potentially be starters. And that's, it's just going to be a week-to-week thing as far as who's going to be in that starting lineup.
Abib, final question for you tonight. Quarterbacks, you waited until the 15th round to take a quarterback. Now, I know you've been drafting in this league for years. You kind of know how these guys treat quarterbacks. For the viewers out there who are drafting in the Big Gorilla, not in, amongst these guys here, is this a strategy you would suggest? Hey, wait on quarterback. Because look what I did in the hard way. I got Purdy in the 15th. I got Lawrence in the 16th. I got Anthony Richardson in the 18th tonight. You got to be happy with this quarterback turnout.
I'm almost always a wait on quarterback. And I feel like at least for me anyway, I feel like this is a position where I tend to, be a little bit more accurate and tend to, have a little bit higher hit rate with success. Last year, my top two quarterbacks were Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. And all I'm doing is looking for value. I'm looking for, obviously, quarterbacks that can contribute to the run game, and then quarterbacks whose offenses appear like it's primarily going to come through the passing game and who have the receiving options to dominate. So for me, and I don't mind drafting multiple. So it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, you can take the, approach of drafting one quarterback early, which I don't think there's an issue with, and then not draft another quarterback and, have your later round pick be dart throws. For me, I like to try to accumulate those higher end, skill player positions, flex positions, because I feel, especially in a draft like this, that it dries out pretty quickly. I think my highest owned running back thus far is RJ Harvey. But I knew in this draft, RJ Harvey was not going to be there likely, later on.
The hype's too high right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to make sure in a draft, that I can get as many of these skill positions as possible. And I'll just play the waiting game. To me, there's a ton of quarterbacks. And I'll just be, I don't necessarily have one that I just love right now, but I think there are a ton of quarterbacks that you can make an argument for who could end up in the top 10, top 12. And I don't, when I'm drafting quarterback and when I'm starting week to week, I draft multiple and I play the matchups. Because I think Vegas is very good at determining point totals and very good at determining, sort of kind of over-unders for quarterbacks. And so to me, it's not as if I'm drafting Brock Purdy as my starter for all 16, 17 games. Ideally between Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, maybe Anthony Richardson, and my start-sit decisions, I end up with an overall cumulative point quarterback top four overall over the year, by just making the right decisions. And that's the goal for me.
Follow Abib on the X at Skywalker 2000, the two-time Football Guys Players Championship 2019-2020 back-to-back champion. the co-host of the First and 15 podcast on the Player Profiler Network, Abib Agbetoba. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Talk to you soon.
Let's get into Bradley Stalder. He is the co-host of the Stack Hunters podcast, again, on the Player Profiler Network. Bradley, so good to have you aboard tonight. This is weird for you. Your co-host drafting from the 3rd spot, and you're drafting from the 12th spot tonight.
Yeah, they split us up somehow, some way. The Stack Hunters are unstacked in a sense, destacked. So this has been a lot of fun toying around with Dan on going back and forth, playing ping pong. So yeah, at least we were next to each other. That would have been not so.
That would have been tough,
right? It would have been tough. I always say, Bradley, it's tough to get an elite quarterback and an elite tight end and have a competitive roster. You did both. You get McBride with your first pick, and you get Lamar Jackson at the 401 after the 4th round. You have to be feeling really good about your prospects in this draft.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with how that turned out. The potential of the quarterback one, potential of the tight end one overall. And yeah, Trey McBride, Lamar Jackson, both have pathways to be the top of their position. And then I love Nico Collins. I think that's a great value. And we're getting a lot of positive news about Rashee Rice. Just, he's probably not going to get suspended this year. He's ahead of schedule, which is what you want to hear. Expected to start week 1. These are the notes that if you're paying attention to Player Profiler news, you would know and hear that all of these things are trending toward Rashee Rice should be a target for you.
Yeah.
So pay attention. Like these are things that like the casual drafters are seeing Rashee Rice in round 4, round 5, round 6. No, like I knew he wasn't going to come back to me in round 5. So I'm going to take Rashee Rice there. And I have Rashee Rice significantly ahead of Xavier Worthy. So yeah, that's my move.
You are on the clock right now with your final 2 picks. One of them has to be a defense. What are you looking at as far as your final like wild card pick? Like your luxury pick here. You could go running back, you could go receiver, you go another tight end, obviously another quarterback if you wanted to back up Lamar Jackson.
There's got to be a fun name on your mind right
Well,
here.
there is, and we got the fun name right here, Bradley Raheem Mostert.
That is not a fun name.
No, it's a fun name in the 19th round, Turk.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Right.
It's just not a fun name.
Mostert in the 19th, backing up Ashton Genty. This is interesting, Bradley.
Yes, I think that, when I'll take a step back, looking at how my roster is structured right now. I'm a big fan of targeting running backs whose number 1 running back in the depth chart is getting drafted very high. And we know that they are clearly the number 2. So like Tyler Algier, clearly the number 2. He crushed before Bijan Robinson. Blake Corum crushed at U of M. Rico Dowdle played very well last year and was brought in to be the number 2. Braylon Allen played very well last year. Raheem Mostert has a 20 touchdown season just 2 years ago, which is wild. So give me Raheem Mostert as the second to last pick of the draft.
Couple more questions for you, Bradley. Quinshon Judkins at the 601, Najee Harris at the 712. Judkins was awesome until they drafted Dylan Sampson. Maybe he's still awesome for you. And then Najee Harris looking like a great signing until the Chargers decided to draft Omarion Hampton.
Sure. Judkins, I have no concerns about him handling the full workload for Cleveland. This was the nuts landing spot for Judkins. He's going to peg in week 1 as the starter. Jerome Ford, they renegotiated his contract. They said, you know what, we're not going to let you go, but we also recognize that you're going to be the backup for Judkins. They're investing round 2 draft capital. There was a massive hole in need in the running back position with Nick Chubb gone, and they know what they have in Ford. And Judkins, if you go to playerprofiler.com and you look at the best comparable player, it's Nick Chubb. So they got Nick Chubb 2.0. And Najee Harris, that's an early season pick. And then I can pair him with whoever can hit late.
The final question I have for you, and this is, to me, in my opinion, I listen to a lot of fantasy podcasts. I know you and Dan have briefly touched on this on Stack Hunters. But Ben Sinnott, the guy that everybody was talking about last year, and then kind of got lost in the shuffle, and obviously the Commanders re-upped with Zach Ertz. we cannot forget about Ben Sinnott in tight end premium drafts like the
No.
FFPC.
No, he was a round 2 selection last year. And Zach Ertz, yes, he re-signs, but remember what happened with a certain other round 2 tight end, in Arizona who, Zach Ertz was in front of and then, fell away. And now suddenly he's on a first round pick in my FFPC league. So Ben Sinnott, we're not saying there's a 1-to-1 correspondence between Trey McBride and Ben Sinnott, but to take a shot on a player. But taking a shot on a player like that, that's where we want to do it.
Bradley Stalder is the news desk director for Player Profiler at Roto Underworld. Check him out at FF Stalder on the X. And, of course, Stack Hunters is the podcast you want to be listening to. Stack Hunters, hosted by Bradley Stalder and Dan Williamson, who's drafting in the 3rd spot tonight. A lot of good stuff on this draft, I'm assuming, coming up on Stack Hunters on the Player Profiler Network. Bradley, thanks so much for hopping aboard tonight. Really appreciate you, man.
Thanks, gents. Till next time.
That is Bradley Stalder. Appreciate him for hopping on. Terp, we're coming up on the final few picks of the round. We got Austin Martin on for the 4th to last pick of the draft. I don't know if you have any picks or teams you want to focus in on. I'll let you think about that while I bring up Austin Martin's pick of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at the 1409, running back 61. Is this a case of, hey, I know there's no sleepers in this draft, drafting amongst all these sharks. I need to go up to the 14th round to draft Krosky-Merritt. How do you feel about that pick?
When this guy drafts rookies, you got to pay attention.
Austin Martin. When Austin Martin drafts
when
rookies.
he drafts rookies, you got to pay attention because to me, there's no better dynasty player out there. Literally just grinds these rookies. He's the guy that I consult early in the process, and I ask him about these rookies, before we get into heavy drafting season, before the draft, and guys that he likes. So if he took a bunch of them. All these guys are definitely guys you need to pay attention to because they all have potential, outs to get there. Brashard Smith, potentially has it out. And also Elijah Mitchell is not a rookie, but same backfield. One of those guys emerges if you're not buying into Kareem Hunt. It's possible. Sean Tucker, he just drafted. Isaiah Davis. Are they guys that are probably going to get there? No, but hopefully this doesn't happen. But let's say something happens to Bucky Irving. Sean Tucker could be the starting running back. Rashad White might not even be there by the time week 1. So
right.
you look at a team like this to where, Jaden Blue, who might be outside of the top guys, my favorite running back in this draft, landed in the absolute nut spot to me in Dallas. Yeah, I know there's some negatives against him, but who's his competition right now? Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
He has lightning speed, and with the guys on the outside, with Ferguson on the inside, Lamb moving around the field, the offensive line being pretty healthy and strong, the possibility's there. So with the guy who didn't take any running backs in the first 7 rounds, Marshawn Lloyd, another guy last year who got pushed up in drafts and then, got banged up in camp and just never materialized. But the talent's there. We were talking about him, taking Josh Jacobs' job before the season started last year.
Yeah, we were.
And he just got banged up and then got in the doghouse and it never worked out. But in a format like this, he's worth a lottery ticket because let's just say it doesn't work out. You hit the cut button, you move on.
So I want to focus in on Austin's team here from the 4 spot. You mentioned Marshawn Lloyd, running back 51 at the 12.
Kyle Williams is another one.
Well, we'll get to
lottery ticket.
Well, we will get to Kyle Williams in a second because I definitely want to probe your brain on Kyle Williams. Mm-hmm. Marshawn Lloyd, kind of an afterthought, right? After last year, had a couple of freak injuries, not football related, and I think people are downgrading him. When you consider how healthy Josh Jacobs was last year, Marshawn Lloyd could be a sleeping beast in Green Bay, and Austin Martin gets him in the 1209 tonight.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. We just talked about, on a team like this that's built, top heavy with tight ends, the elite quarterback, and obviously the stud receivers. He got a lot of potential at the running back position. A lot of guys who, could be the guy right away, could be a guy in week 2, week 3, and it just makes too much sense. Like you look at Dan Williamson is my guy, but you look at Jaden Blue versus Javonte Williams. I'm never taking Javonte Williams there. ever in a million years because let's just say it works out. It might work out for a week or 2 weeks. There's no way it's going to be a long season with Javonte Williams, the guy. I mean, you saw if he can't figure it out with Sean Payton, he's going to figure it out with Brian Schottenheimer. I don't see it. Jaden Blue to me just, he might be the sexy rookie pick that just never materializes if he gets like stuck in camp. But on a team like Austin Martin built, Jaden Blue just makes too much sense.
So I will say, in defense of Dan Williamson, you had Jaden Blue going off the board one pick before he could take him, so he took Javonte Williams. Correct. Now, Terp, to your point, I think that the ceiling for Blue is much higher. I don't know if the floor is much different between Williams and Blue. Yeah. So I get that. In fact, the more podcasts I've listened to, the more content I've read, I'm lamenting my skipping Jaden Blue in the third round of my first dynasty rookie draft this season. I'm like, God, I should have taken him, but that's okay. Let's talk more about Austin Martin's team here. So if you look at his structure, he goes 3 receivers to kick it off. Then he goes tight end, quarterback, tight end. So through 7 rounds, he has no running backs. And then for the final 13 rounds, he drafts 10 running backs. Obviously, he had to take a kicker. He had to take a defense. And then Kyle Williams, who we'll get to in a second. But Scattaboo, Charbonnet, Jaden Blue, Lloyd, Brashard Smith, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Mitchell, Chubb, Isaiah Davis, Sean Tucker. What do you make of that strategy where you load up on these pass catchers early on in the first 7 rounds and then just piss pound these running backs throughout the last 2/3 of the draft?
With his format, just makes so much sense. I mean, you have so many outs and so many different options on these guys. And you also have plenty of guys you can cut to pick up guys who just emerge off waivers. Because like you said, there's 2 runs before the season starts, and most of these guys might not make his team. Let's just say Nick Chubb doesn't have a roster by then. He's probably C. Isaiah Davis might not make the final thing. Who knows what's going to happen between Smith and Elijah Mitchell? One of those guys could be off. And you could be looking at different options. It gives you so many outs. Blue, Marshawn Lloyd, guys like that. I'm just looking at the bottom half here. I keep talking about Sean Tucker. You could easily see a path where he's the running back 2 in Tampa. Yeah, I know Rashad White's still there, but doesn't mean he's going to be there when the season starts. If a running back injury happens here and there, he's going to be one of the first calls. So I just love what he did. To me, he's 1 and 2 with Go Bills in this overall league so far of drafts that I personally like.
Yeah, we talked about the Go Bills franchise. We'll get to him in a second. But you want to talk about Kyle Williams, and I think this is important because with people still having rookie drafts going on in the FFPC and other private dynasty leagues, Kyle Williams is a guy I've gone back and forth on. He doesn't have prototypical size, and I probably shouldn't be holding this against him, Terp, but he was drafted by the Patriots. That's not exactly a panacea for fantasy goodness when you're drafted by New England and you're a wide receiver. However, if you look at what that offense was not able to do, is probably the best way I can put it. What it was not able to do in college when they didn't have Kyle Williams on the field, I think that speaks volumes about how good Williams can be. He steps into a situation with Demario Douglas and all these random players there. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is there too. But Kyle Williams at the 11:04 for Austin Martin tonight. I'll let you speak to him not only at a dynasty level, but redraft level here too, which I think is interesting.
One of my favorite players coming out of the draft. To me, the comparison is Tyler Lockett. It seems like it makes a ton of sense. Shifty, just has the explosive ability to really develop with Drake May. There's a ton of questions at that receiving core. Yeah, I know they paid Stephon Diggs. Yeah, I know we see the videos of Stephon Diggs being ready to go right now. But he's coming off a really serious injury. He's getting up there. They have a bunch of questions behind that. Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, who they drafted last year, Javon Baker, who everybody was hype monster,
right,
at the end of last year. We really don't know who's going to be the guy. So to me, he makes a lot of sense. And on this team, you can hang on for him for a little bit. He's not somebody that's going to be playing for you probably anytime soon. But if he does emerge, he could be a guy down the road that you could plug in your lineup and feel confident about it because you have the 3 tight ends, you have the 3 receivers. They're going to be your heart and soul pretty much all season. And you have Kyle Williams as a potential lottery ticket. And if the lottery ticket pays off, it could pay off big, because I don't like the Patriots. They could have done so much better. Coach-wise, OC-wise, hated both selections. I've always been anti-Mike Vrabel when it comes to, he's a good leader, but as a coach, hired a very average offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels just doesn't do it for me. I wanted to see Drake May develop with somebody that was a little bit more forward-thinking, younger, somebody with a little bit more, juice than Josh McDaniels. So that was kind of a bummer. So that makes me downgrade their team a little bit overall. But Drake May he's going to be a stud, whether Vrabel holds it back or McDaniels holds it back. And I think Kyle Williams could be the guy that really develops with him, and as the year gets on, be a guy that you put in your lineup, the flex position, to be happy about it.
Yeah, I think JD, John Daniel, taking Hunter Henry at the 1404. I think that was a very shrewd pick.
Very smart pick.
We don't talk a lot about Hunter Henry, but I think he's going to factor into that.
Not sexy, but he's never going to hurt you.
Not sexy, but you're totally right. He won't hurt you.
Drake May developed with him last year, so he definitely has potential.
I want to give you the last word on the Go Bills draft from the 8th spot tonight, Terp. The former back-to-back main event champions. It was a great draft, in my opinion. You look at the quarterback. I'll just go through the roster here. Hurts and Stroud at quarterback, love it. Running backs are Gibbs, Chase Brown, Joe Mixon, Rashad White, Will Shipley, and Justice Hill. Obviously top-heavy, but that's how most running backs are going to be. I think that's solid. Wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison, Calvin Ridley, Khalil Shakir, Stephon Diggs, Trey Harris. There is a lot of unsexy names in there, right? With Marvin Harrison coming off a bad rookie year. Calvin Ridley, Tennessee. Khalil Shakir, it's Buffalo. And they added Josh Palmer. Stephon Diggs coming off the torn ACL. Trey Harris, he's a rookie coming into Ladd McConkeyville. I think that if you paint the silver lining here, you can see how these guys can all succeed in 2025. Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Theo Johnson, and Tyler Higbee are the tight ends. Yeah, that's not the most attractive names in the world, but I think
doesn't have to be with the roster he built.
With the roster that you have there with Go Bills, I think that you can formulate tight end by committee there, and you'll know who to start. I like this team, but it sounds like you love this team.
This would be my favorite draft. I mean, if I had to pick one, gun to my head, everything just about the structure just makes so much sense. The later round picks I like a ton. We talked about Stephon Diggs a couple minutes ago. That still doesn't mean that in the 9th round he's not worth a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Shakir, they keep talking about they decided Elijah Moore. Keon Coleman's going to take the next step. Is he? Josh Palmer there now. Shakir, they paid him. He's still going to be the focal point of that offense. Kincaid, we don't know if he's 100%. Obviously, we just saw him, on Twitter, some reports that he might not be 100% healthy. And Dawson Knox is just so annoying, but he really doesn't factor in. I really like Calvin Ridley this year. I'm a Cam Ward believer, so I think Tyler Lockett being added there really helps. It gives them another option. It was pretty much the Calvin Ridley show last year. There was nobody else. They added some pieces in the draft. With a potentially, quarterback that's not Will Levis. It makes a ton of sense for Calvin Ridley. He's a guy that I like a lot, early in the season. We talked about Marvin Harrison. Trey Harris is one of my favorite rookies in the draft, another great landing spot for him. In the tight end position, Dallas Goedert is going to be an Eagle. So at the end of the day, it came out today. He's not going to be traded. He's going to restructure his contract. It's a great value in the 10th round. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a superstar, but with him, Ertz, Theo Johnson, another guy they added nobody really to. Yeah, I know he got hurt last year, but he did show some flashes of potential. And then Tyler Higbee might be the most non-sexy name in fantasy football, but when he's healthy, he performs. Will he probably be an early cut candidate if things don't, gel with that, Adams, Nakua, they're just getting all the targets, and then Kyron Williams and the rest of the receivers on the team. It's possible, but Tyler Higbee's, if he's healthy, he does perform. So I don't have anything negative to say about this team. There's not one pick that I can say that's gross. I mean, everything just fits in perfectly. They would be, out of all the teams I've seen drafted so far, one of my team that I like the most.
The other thing with Higbee too is he's being downgraded because of Terrence Ferguson. And Terrence Ferguson,
we see it every year with these rookie tight ends.
Right.
There's a ton of potential in some of these guys, but you also get caught up in last year, the Ben Sinnotts. I got caught up in it. Everybody got caught up in it. Everybody overdrafted him, and they got a big 0 all season, no matter what. So I'll take, you got to take some shots, but you can't be overexposed to these guys because, there's obviously a small chance that he breaks out and he's the guy in that explosive offense, but there's also a chance he doesn't play at all. And it's just pretty much like a small, redshirt type of season. And then what happens? You're spending draft capital on a tight end, especially like in a best ball format. It's just smart. It's a lesson that I've learned the hard way.
It's a lesson you've learned the hard way with drafting Ferguson. But if you draft Higbee because Ferguson is being inflated, now all of a sudden you have something.
You're gonna get some startable weeks if he stays healthy.
Right.
I'm not sitting here saying he's gonna put up Brock Bowers numbers, even though he has, in real small pieces.
Right.
But the offense is there, and you could do a lot worse than Tyler Higbee in the late rounds of drafts. I'm not advocating for him. I'm not, saying but he's a veteran. Stafford likes him. If he's healthy, he performs. He gets open. So to me, it makes a ton of sense.
It makes a ton of sense to have Dave Terpoilli back on Insider Access on the
I missed you.
Network. I missed you too. Listen, we're going to do some more live draft coverage, be it on the BSN or on the FFPC family of podcasts. Terp, you will be back on this show. I'll let you know when we're going to have you back on to do more live draft coverage. We will not have live draft coverage next week. We will be back at our normal time, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, with everything that you need to know about drafting early. If you cannot wait until then, and you cannot wait until Dave is back on this podcast, follow him on the X at Dave Terp. He is a 14-time FFPC league champion, and he will be guesting on a lot of FFPC live draft coverage throughout the summer. Dave, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it, man.
See you, bud.
The FFPC main event, the FFPC Big Gorilla. If you want to compete against these 12 guys that we have had on the show tonight to win $1 million, you can do that right now. Slow drafts, live drafts, available at myffpc.com. FFPC main event, another $1 million grand prize. Slow drafts are often running there at myffpc.com. Don't forget about the best ball tournament and the Superflex best ball tournament, available now. $300,000 and $100,000 grand prize at a $125 and $35 entry fee. MyFFPC.com is where to go, as well as startup drafts, 1,800 plus dynasty leagues over the course of the last 15 years in the FFPC. None have ever folded. You will have your pick of whatever you want to do with startup drafts, and you will not have to worry about those leagues folding. MyFFPC.com. Again, Thursday night, 7 o'clock, we will be back live on Insider Access on the Better Sports Network, brought to you by the FFPC. For Dave Terpoilli, for our producer, Matt Deutsch, for our guests tonight, Bradley Stalder, Theo Gremminger, Abib Agbetoba, Darren Armani. I have been Eric Balkman. This is Insider Access, brought to you by the FFPC on the Better Sports Network.